When people talk about unforgettable television chemistry, the names Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu often come up. Not because their story was loud or complicated, but because it felt real. Their work together, especially in Karalık Aşk, showed how two actors can take an ordinary romantic storyline and turn it into something that feels personal to millions of viewers. At the beginning, nothing about the script seemed revolutionary. It was a familiar setup. A hardworking young woman, a successful but emotionally guarded businessman, a contract relationship that slowly begins to feel genuine. On paper, it was a story audiences had seen before. But what made it different was not the storyline. It was the way they looked at each other. From their very first scene, there was a natural rhythm between them. Barış brought a calm strength to his character, Ömer. He did not overplay emotions. Instead, he allowed small gestures to speak. A pause before answering. A soft smile that appeared unexpectedly. A subtle change in his eyes when his character started to care more than he wanted to admit. Elçin, as Defne, balanced that energy beautifully. She brought warmth, honesty, and a sense of vulnerability that never felt exaggerated. Her expressions carried layers. She could show confidence and uncertainty in the same moment. She made Defne relatable, not perfect. One of the early moments that made viewers pay attention was a simple dinner scene. There was no dramatic confession, no grand speech, just conversation. But the way Barış leaned slightly forward while listening, and the way Elçin hesitated before answering certain questions, created tension without noise. It felt like two real people discovering something unexpected between them. That is where the shine began. In many romantic series, actors rely on dramatic music or big emotional lines to create impact. But here, silence did a lot of the work. A shared glance across a room became more powerful than a long dialogue. When Ömer looked at Defne with quiet admiration, viewers felt it. When Defne tried to hide her growing feelings but failed because her smile gave her away, audiences connected deeply. Another memorable moment was a scene involving rain. Rain scenes are common in television. They often symbolize change or emotional turning points. Yet what made this one special was how natural it felt. There was laughter. There was hesitation. There was a moment where both characters seemed unsure whether to move closer or step back. That uncertainty felt human. It made the scene memorable not because it was dramatic, but because it was sincere. Barış and Elçin understood something important about storytelling. They did not rush emotional development. They allowed the relationship to grow slowly. Small touches mattered. A hand brushing against another hand. A protective gesture that happened instinctively. A moment of jealousy that was more about fear of loss than pride. These details transformed a simple romantic comedy into something viewers talked about long after episodes ended. Off-screen, their professionalism also played a role in shaping what audiences saw. Interviews showed mutual respect. They spoke about each other's dedication, preparation, and focus. That respect translated into trust on screen. When actors trust each other, scenes feel effortless. One scene that fans still remember clearly is when Ömer realizes that his feelings are no longer part of a plan. His expression changes slowly. It is not loud. It is not exaggerated. But it is powerful. Elçin responds with a performance that mirrors that shift. Her character senses something has changed, even before words are spoken. That shared emotional timing is rare. There were also lighthearted moments that made the story shine. Playful teasing. Awkward misunderstandings. Laughter that felt spontaneous. These moments gave balance. They prevented the story from becoming heavy. Instead, it felt like a journey with ups and downs, just like real relationships. What truly made their partnership special was authenticity. They did not try to create something grand. They focused on truth in small moments. And those small moments built something big. Audiences did not just watch Ömer and Defne fall in love. They felt like they were witnessing something genuine. That emotional investment is not easy to create. It requires subtle acting choices, emotional awareness, and strong on-screen connection. By the end of the first season, it was clear that this was more than just another romantic series. It became a cultural moment. Viewers across different countries discovered the story. Social media filled with scenes, quotes, and fan edits. But at the center of all that attention were two performances that never tried too hard. Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu showed that sometimes the most powerful storytelling does not come from complexity. It comes from sincerity. From two actors who understand that simple stories shine brightest when emotions feel real. As the story moved forward, something interesting began to happen. The audience was no longer watching just for plot twists. They were watching for moments. The quiet ones. The pauses. The seconds where nothing was said, yet everything was understood. Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu had already proven they could carry a romantic storyline with charm. But what truly made simple scenes shine was their ability to communicate without speaking. One of the most talked about turning points in Karalık Aşk came during a scene where Ömer and Defne were in the same room, emotionally distant but physically close. There was tension, but not the loud kind. It was the kind that sits in the air. The kind that makes viewers hold their breath. Barış stood still for a moment longer than expected before speaking. That pause mattered. It showed hesitation. It showed pride battling with vulnerability. Meanwhile, Elçin's eyes softened, even though her character tried to appear strong. She blinked slowly, as if holding back words she was not ready to say. Nothing dramatic happened. No raised voices. No dramatic exits. Yet that scene stayed with viewers because it felt honest. It reflected the kind of misunderstandings that happen in real relationships. The kind where both people care deeply but struggle to express it at the same time. Another memorable sequence involved separation. Not a dramatic goodbye, but emotional distance created by circumstances. Instead of exaggerating heartbreak, both actors chose restraint. Barış portrayed quiet longing. His character did not fall apart outwardly. Instead, the pain showed in subtle ways. A slower walk, a distant gaze, a softer tone. Elçin mirrored that emotional shift with equal balance. Defne's strength did not disappear, but it became layered with reflection. She smiled less. Her laughter became thoughtful rather than carefree. She carried emotion in her posture. This is where their performances elevated the story. They trusted the audience. They did not explain every feeling through dialogue. They allowed viewers to read between the lines. There was a cafe scene during this period that perfectly captured their connection. They sat across from each other. The conversation was polite, almost too polite, but the eye contact told a different story. There was history in those glances. There was regret. There was affection that had not disappeared. That kind of acting requires deep awareness. It requires understanding timing, rhythm, and emotional pacing. Barış often slowed scenes down in a way that made every gesture meaningful. Elçin responded with expressions that felt spontaneous but precise. Fans often say that what made their partnership special was balance. He brought quiet intensity. She brought warmth and emotional clarity. Together, they created harmony. Another moment that stood out was a simple apology scene. No grand speeches. Just sincerity. Barış delivered his lines calmly, without theatrical emphasis. The strength of the moment came from his tone. It was steady, but humble. Elçin's reaction was equally important. She did not immediately forgive. She listened. She processed. Her eyes reflected internal conflict. That exchange felt mature. It showed growth in their characters. And again, it transformed a straightforward romantic situation into something deeper. What is fascinating is how many of their most memorable scenes were built on minimalism. A hand resting gently over another. A quiet walk side by side without conversation. A look of relief after tension is resolved. Even in lighter moments, their chemistry continued to shine. A playful argument about something small could turn into a scene full of charm. Barış would deliver teasing lines with a subtle smile that never felt forced. Elçin would respond with expressive reactions that made the scene lively but grounded. They understood rhythm. When one pulled back emotionally, the other leaned in. When one showed strength, the other showed softness. That balance created movement in every scene. As the series progressed, viewers were not just invested in what would happen next. They were invested in how it would happen. How would Omer look at Defn this time? How would Defn react when she sensed his hesitation? Those small details became the heart of the show. International audiences began discovering the series as well. Clips of their scenes spread across different platforms. People who did not speak Turkish still understood the emotions. That speaks to the universality of their performances. A simple love story became something people revisited repeatedly. Not because of complex twists, but because of emotional truth. Barış Arduç and Elçin Sangu demonstrated that chemistry is not about dramatic intensity alone. It is about listening. It is about responding. It is about creating space for silence and allowing that silence to carry meaning. In a world of fast storytelling, they chose patience. In a genre filled with big gestures, they chose subtlety. And once again, simple storytelling began to shine even brighter.